Hi guys, I hope you're all doing well and finding lots of things to keep yourself busy with this summer. But here's another idea if you need one. Finger knitting. All you need is a ball of wool and your fingers. This video will start with a little tutorial about the basics, where I'll teach you how to cast on, how to knit, how to increase, decrease and cast off. And then I'm going to give you some ideas of what you can do with your new finger knitting skills. So, let's crack on. First things first, I'm going to show you how to do a slip knot, which is really important for a lot of different needle crafts. Like if you're going to do knitting, if you're going to do crochet, anything like that, a slip knot is the first thing you need to know. So, I'm going to take my wool and I'm going to cross it to make a loop. Then I'm going to take this strand and put it through the loop, like this, and then pull it. So it's essentially, you're going to tie a knot, but instead of pulling the end through, you just want to loop. Because then you can tighten it, you can loosen it, you can use it for anything. So for finger knitting, we're going to start by putting this loop around your thumb. And you can choose which hand you're going to do this on, but the hand that you put this loop on is the hand that the knitting will come down the back of, and the other hand will be your more dominant hand in doing the weaving. So I'm going to put it on my left hand because I'm right-handed. So taking the long bit of wool that's attached to your ball, I'm going to weave it between your fingers. So it goes behind, in front, behind, in front. And then back again, behind, in front, behind, in front. So you've got a line of wool around each finger. Now I'm going to repeat that. Behind, in front, behind, in front, round, behind, in front, behind, in front. So now, if you can see on each finger, I've got 2 loops. So I'm going to start off by taking the bottom loop, lifting it over the top loop and off my finger. So the bottom loop comes off. And that's your first row. So if you can see, it's coming down the back of my hand, and as you do more and more, it'll get longer and longer coming down the back of your hand. So now we've still got the loops, the bottom loops. So we're going to go over again, behind, in front, behind, in front, behind, in front, behind, in front. So now I've got 2 loops again. And the bottom loops are going to come over the top loops and off, over the top and off, over the top and off, over the top and off. It might be easier if you notice how I bent my finger as I took it off, rather than trying to stretch it all the way over. So I'll show you again, because now we've got our baseline, and we're going to go behind, in front, round, behind, in front, and look, we've got 2 rows again. So I'm going to take the bottom loop, over and off, over and off, over and off, and then over and off. So now I've just got the baseline again, and it's getting longer down the back of my hand. So I'm going to do a few more rows to get it nice and long so that I can show you some more steps. So. Okay, so now that my finger knitting is getting nice and long down the back of my hand, I can take the loop off my thumb, because that was just there as we were starting. It's not, doesn't need to be there anymore. So you can see how long it's getting. And at this point, I could cast off. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You're going to take this loop and you're going to put it on this finger. And then the loop underneath, which was originally on your middle finger, is going to come off. And then the new loop is going to come onto the next finger. And then the original loop is going to come off. And then one more time, the new loop, I'm going to take off that finger, put on your little finger, and then take the original loop off and over. And now you've just got one loop left. Cut that. You can take this end, pass it through the loop, pull it tight, and tie it in a little knot. Like that. And now you have a little length of finger knitting. Okay, so that's the very basics. That's casting on, finger knitting, and then casting off again. So now I'm going to show you how to increase and decrease, because when you're finger knitting, you don't necessarily need it to be on 4 fingers. So just to show you that, I'm going to do it on 2 fingers. So it's the exact same principle. I'm just not going over all my fingers. So I'm still doing the loops behind and front, and then taking the bottom loop off over the top loop, and then going again. And I'll keep going with this for a little bit so that you guys can see how that's going to look, because it's just going to be thinner than the other one. Okay, and now I'm going to cast off by taking this loop onto my other finger, taking the bottom loop off, cutting the wool, passing that end through that loop, and then tying it in a knot. Lovely. So as you can see, this one is a lot thinner than this one, because this one I did on 2 fingers, and this one I did on 4 fingers. So, if I wanted to, I could switch in the same strand between using 4 fingers and using 2 fingers. And that can create some cool kind of shapes. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to start using these 2 fingers, the middle 2, because then when I increase, I'll have an increase on this side and an increase on this side, making a shape that comes up and then kind of curves out like this. But if you wanted to, you could start on these 2 fingers and then increase on these 2 fingers, and you'd have a shape that comes up and then has increase on just one side, like that. So I'm going to start with my middle 2 fingers, and I'm just going to wrap round like that, so I've got my 2 lines on my fingers again, and I'm going to take the bottom one over and off, and I'm going to keep doing this for a minute so I've got it nice and long, so that then when I increase you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so now I've got my long strand of just 2, like this one. I'm now going to increase it so it starts to look more like this one with 4 strands. Okay, so this is an important bit. I'm going to take my wool, I'm going to wrap it around my pinky, and then I'm just going to go around and around there. Wrap it around this finger, my first finger, and back again, like that. And so now, if you can see, I've got 2 loops on my middle 2 fingers, but only 1 on the end 2. So here, I'm just going to take the bottom loop off from my middle 2, and I'm not going to touch these 2. I'm going to leave these 2 as they are. There we go. So now I'm back to having 1 loop on each finger. So I'm going to wrap around again, like this. And now I've got 2 loops on each finger. So I'm going to take the bottom loop off, over and off, over and off, over and off. So now I've got 4 stitches going, and I'm just going to keep going with those. And in a minute you'll be able to see it coming down the back of my hand is a lot thicker than this. So remember, this is the 2 strands, and as it's coming out now is 4 strands. Can you see that? Oh, it's got bigger here. Yeah. So now I'm going to show you how to decrease and go back to 2 strands again. So I've got 4 single loops, 1 on each finger, and I want to decrease this finger and this finger, so I only have these 2 with strands on them. So I'm going to take this loop from my first finger and put it on my middle finger, and the loop from my pinky finger and put it on my 4th finger, like that. And now I've got 2 loops. So I'm going to take the bottom loop over and off, and the bottom loop over and off, and then wrap round again, and just keep going only on those 2 fingers. And then it should start coming down the back of my hand, and you'll see that it's just 2 strands. Okay, so can you see that now? How this bit's skinny, this bit's skinny, and this bit's got a lot more width. In this middle section, where I had 4 fingers going, this is 2 fingers, and this is 2 fingers. So we've got this nice big bump in the middle. And now I'm going to cast off. So I'm going to cut away, past the end, through the loop, put it tight, and tie a knot. So now I've got this funky looking shape, and that is all the basic techniques that you guys are going to need to know. So now that you've mastered the art of finger knitting, I thought I'd show you a couple of projects to put it into practice. First of which is my fun little snake. So, as you can see on this snake, there's 2 colours, and that's because the whole way through I'm going to be using 2 balls of wool. This makes it a lot chunkier, so if you compare this strand, which just has 1 ball of wool, and this strand, which has 2, even though they both only use 2 fingers, there's a big difference in the kind of thickness and chunkiness of them. So we're going to be using 2 balls of wool. But we're going to be treating it as if it's just 1 ball of wool. So, I mean, you're going to be keeping the 2 colours together the whole time. We're not going to be treating them separately. They're going to stick together. So we're going to start with a slip knot. And put that on your thumb. And we're going to start with just 2 fingers, the middle 2 fingers. We're going to weave around until we've got 2 layers on each. So here, as you can actually see, there's 4 strands of wool on each finger, but we're going to be treating this as 1 strand, this as 1 strand, and this as 1 strand, and this as 1 strand, rather than treating each piece of wool individually. So we're effectively taking the bottom 2 pieces of wool off, but we're treating that as 1 piece. And we're going to keep doing that for a little while until we've got a long enough body for our snake. Okay, so that's as long as I want my snake's body to be. So now I'm going to start making the head. Now, if you remember earlier, I was teaching you how to increase. So that means putting loops on these 2 fingers as well. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to wrap around the first finger, weave around the rest, and around the pinky finger. Now we've got 2 loops on the middle 2 fingers, but only 1 on the end 2. So we're going to take middle two over and off, and then all of them can come over and off now that I've got 2 on each finger. And I'm going to do that twice. Like that. So that's twice I've taken the loop off all my fingers. Okay, and now I'm going to start to decrease again to get the kind of in part of the snake's head. So I'm going to take the stitches from my first finger onto my middle finger, and from my pinky onto my 4th finger. And now I'm going to take the bottom loop off on my middle 2 fingers. I'm going to wrap around again, take those 2 off, and now I'm going to cast off. So I'm going to take the stitch from my middle finger, put it on my 4th finger, take the bottom loop over the top loop, cut both my pieces of wool, pass both the ends through the loop, pull it tight, and then tie it in a little knot. Because I used red as one of my colours, I am going to only cut the green strand, so it leaves the red strand like a little tongue peeking out, and I'm going to cut the end 2 strands from the tail. And now you can see the shape has formed, that increasing and decreasing created this little oval on the top for the head, and the rest is a nice long body. Okay, and now I'm going to show you how to make a hairband. So pop this one on so you can see what I'm talking about. There we go. Beautiful. So I am going to use the red again. For this one, the technique that I'm teaching you here can be used for anything really. It's just how to make a big loop. And I thought it'd be fun to use that loop as a hairband. So you can use it for anything. But I'm going to cast on all my fingers. So I've got 2 loops on them all. And then I'm just going to start stitching. So taking the bottom loop over the top loop and off my hand. And I'm going to keep doing this until I think it's big enough to fit around my head. Yeah, I think that's long enough. So at this point, you can go one of 2 ways. There's an easy way and there's a harder way. So I'm going to show you the harder way first. So we're going to feel along our knitting to make sure it's not twisted. And then when we reach the end, if you kind of pull it open a little bit like this, you'll be able to see a bunch of loops. And without twisting it, you're going to try and put a finger, each of your 4 fingers, through a different loop. Like that. Yeah? And then you're going to take the bottom over the top on each of those. And then we're going to cast off. So putting first finger onto middle finger, taking it off, middle finger onto 4th finger, taking it off, and 4th finger onto pinky finger, taking it off. Then we're going to cut off the end of the wool, and we're going to pass the strand through the loop, pull it tight, and tie a knot. Like that. Perfect, and now we have the loop of finger knitting that you could use as a hairband. You could make smaller ones as a bracelet, you could use them to go around anything. And then for the simpler option, instead of putting the extra loops around your fingers, it's going to cast off as normal, and then you'll have 2 strands of wool, and we're just going to tie them together like that. And there we've got an easier option for you there. Perfect. And that's everything I've got to teach you today. But before I go, I'm just going to show you some easy ways that you can vary your finger netting. So you can, of course, use different colours of wool. You can use multiple colours of wool in one, like these two. Or you can just stick to one colour, like this. You can vary the tension, which is a fancy knitting word, meaning how tightly you pull the wool. So if you weave it really tightly around your fingers, you'll get really small holes. And if you weave it really loosely, you'll get big holes throughout your work. And it just depends what kind of style you're going after. But I hope you've learned something, and I hope that's going to keep you busy for a little bit. Bye!